And welcome back to Behind the Post. My next guest has over a decade of social media management experience and has worked with massive brands such as T-Mobile, Sprint, and Samsung, managing social media from daily content to analytics. She has also worked in higher education and tourism, establishing the first social media presence for Furman University, and built a tourism-focused social media community for Visit Greenville in Greenville, South Carolina. Now she's the senior social media manager at Corel, helping to manage 8 different brands from their day-to-day content, community management, and analytics. Please welcome to the show, Jessica Kalberzik. Jessica, are you ready to go behind the post with me?
Yes, very excited.
Amazing. Well, I'm a huge fan of Corel, and I love everything that you guys are doing across your corporate social channels to your employee advocacy. And I know you've been working in social for quite some time, so I think this is going to be such a fun episode, and I'm really looking forward to picking your brain and learning a few things along the way.
Yeah.
But before we dive in, could you share a brief look at your professional journey and how you found yourself at Corel?
Yeah. So I always wanted to get into PR. I knew I did since high school, and then I went to college and majored in that and whatnot. And then when I graduated college, social media really wasn't a thing yet. It was pretty much MySpace, and that was it. So a few years later, I was doing PR. So a few years later after that, Twitter kind of came along. And to me, I was like, okay, this is PR, but online, and felt so much easier and, a better way to connect with, at the time, journalists. And then once I kind of got into it, I really fell in love with beginning to build my own personal brand. But from there, I wanted to do it with big brands, and was able to get an opportunity with Samsung, and helped build their social media customer support side of things, so I was one of the first people to ever answer angry Samsung customers, and some happy ones too. But yeah, so starting that, and then I headed into higher ed again, because I had worked in higher ed when I was in PR with Furman University, and that was a lot of fun working in higher ed. Working with students and stuff. It was just a really good time, and Snapchat was kind of just coming around, so being able to work on like geo filters, setting them up for like specific events, but just having them all over campus was great. And then just kind of continued there to visit Greenville, in Greenville, South Carolina, which they're kind of an up and coming a little area to visit. Highly recommend it. But yeah, from there, doing a lot of local stuff. And then my husband had an opportunity to move to Cleveland, Ohio. So we came up here, and I just started working with Sprint and they merged with T-Mobile. So I was part of the whole big merger, and merging our social media channels, getting all the content right and everything. So and then from there, I took a little time off to spend with my daughter, and now I'm here with Corel and helping Stephanie build just the brand for Corel and all the other sub brands we have underneath.
Wow, that's incredible. I feel like you've had your hand, and like you've had a taste of like almost everything. So
yeah, I've seen it all, and kind of the good, bad, and ugly. But my path always has brought me back to social media. And I love it. So I'm lucky. I know I'm one of the lucky ones to work in it.
Yeah, me too. Love it too. It has its days, but we love it. So incredible. Well, for anyone listening in that doesn't know what Corel is, could you just briefly share a little bit about Corel?
Yeah, so Corel, and I know Corel for me, growing up, I remember getting the Corel Draw software on our computers, back in like the late 90s and stuff like that. But Corel is really grown into this major brand that has brought in a lot of different software into it, like Parallels RAS, Mind Manager, WinZip. So now we've really become a family of brands besides just Corel Draw and Corel Painter, which are 2 very great brands already, and great software to use. So we're trying to really become a brand, and working on becoming a more cohesive brand that people know they can purchase all of our suite of products, and can do so many different things, from that graphic design aspect to a lot of like IT management and whatnot, to a lot of brainstorming that you can utilize, especially with Mind Manager. But so we're really morphing into kind of a much bigger brand, and telling that story has been a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to continue to tell it, because I think we have a lot of great stuff coming down the line for sure.
Amazing. So, for someone who's been in social for quite some time, you probably know that no 2 days look the same. So, I'm curious to know, what does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah. So for me, first things first is I kind of go through email, but also kind of all the, using Oktopost and using all the inboxes and checking all the different channels that we post on, making, checking messages, seeing if customers kind of get back to us on things, and also, checking the streams to see if anything kind of was breaking overnight.
Hmm.
Then, along with email, kind of gets my to-do list really going. And I try to write down a to-do list because I'm old school like that. But
I'm the same way.
yeah, I have to have
Hmm.
it written down. I think it helps me to just get it all into my head.
Hmm.
But yeah, so from there, and then I head into the Octopost calendar, make sure that copy for the day has been written, and we have everything we planned on having in the calendar that day. And then taking a look at a couple of my project management tools, making sure that I'm setting things up for the rest of the week that we'll have up
Hmm.
there. So yeah, and just kind of keeping an eye on, always what's trending and whatnot, to make sure that, if there is something we need to write a post about, or,
Hmm.
conversation we want to be a part of, that we're doing that. So, and that's just kind of constant throughout the day,
Hmm.
checking back with maybe analytics sometimes, every other day or something, especially on a Thursday or Friday, to see how the week went. Um,
Hmm.
just kind of monitoring, everything sort of coming in, making sure that our posts are performing as well as we
Hmm.
want them to. And yeah, so it's looking at a lot of different tabs.
Yeah. Oh, I am the queen of having like 10,000 tabs open at all times. So
Mhm.
I feel you there. I always have to like go out and clear them at the end of the day because it
Oh
gets out of
yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
I want to touch a little bit about social strategy a little bit. I always find it interesting to talk about how different social media managers approach their strategy. And for you guys, I know employee advocacy takes a big part of the conversation. So I'd love to know a little bit about your strategy. Are you focusing more on your corporate social, or do you really focus in on employee advocacy? Could you just give us like a little insight there?
Yeah. I think our advocacy was really grown out. It definitely was the brainchild of Stephanie, and has just continued to be every day top of mind. So when we're writing posts for our own corporate stuff, we're deciding maybe not everything, but a good chunk of
Hmm.
stuff, whether it be from Parallels or WinZip or Corel Draw, Painter, all that, we can easily put them over into the advocacy boards, and people can share those out. I mean, every morning I'm in there and I see a lot of our employees who are sharing our stuff
Hmm.
the night before or whatnot. And no, it's a really big chunk of what we do. I think we've always, we don't rely on it completely, but it's just kind
Hmm.
of a very big added bonus for
Yeah.
what we're already posting on our corporate channels.
Hmm. Yeah, I know for us, it sometimes, well, most of the time, our advocacy will outperform our corporate,
Yeah.
which obviously it makes sense because when you're utilizing your employees, you have such a wider reach than just the followers of your corporate channels. So when it comes to your content, I think it's always really interesting. I know when I have talked to some of our customers and they're wanting to start an employee advocacy program, their first question is, okay, but what kind of content will I share? Would you mind sharing the types of content that you are creating for your employees to share out?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely can range. Obviously, anything kind of breaking the latest, if we're having a big announcement, there's that. But also, the posts that we do that are taking a deeper dive into certain aspects of like whichever software we're talking about, so it's Parallels or Draw and stuff like that. If there's an article written about those, we always, pretty much 90% of the time, we'll always put that over on our advocacy boards, because
Mhm.
that's great, word of mouth already. Someone writing an article about it and then sharing that out is just kind of that authenticity
Yeah.
aspect of things. So yeah, but in deciding what we're going to do, it's mainly a lot of the sharing of articles, a lot of almost every blog post we're doing, we always have it
Mhm.
shared out, and a lot of it too. with Krista, our CEO, she, has a wealth of knowledge. And so pretty much we're always sharing, whether she's been quoted somewhere or, she's even shared a blog herself, that we're sharing that because she has a very powerful impact for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I love using it to even like amplify the voices of like
Yes.
the leaders in your own company too.
Yeah.
I love that.
Mhm.
A question about like running the program and keeping like a good, healthy program. Are you doing anything to kind of motivate your employees to like stay active in the program and keep sharing content out?
We're actually going to start kind of a couple of contests down the line here. I'm working on a strategy for that. And, we want to give back to them because they're, so many of them, most of them are all doing an amazing job. We have that leaderboard, and I think that also kind of adds a little bit to the competitiveness of what you're sharing. And I'd love to look at that, just kind of get an idea of like who's sharing what. And how well they're doing, how much engagement they get and stuff like that. And we get a lot of great engagement. Our employees get great engagement on everything they share. So, but yeah, no, we're working on some more things to get people enticing more people to join, but also, getting more people to just continue to share and share more.
Yeah, that like healthy competition goes such a long way. Like
Yeah.
even if you don't have like a tangible reward, even just like writing in a Slack group chat, like who is on the leaderboard that month, like just having that like connection and like with your advocates goes such a long way. And employee advocacy like contests also are just so incredible. So
Yeah, no, yeah, we're trying to implement, because advocacy was only brought about really not too long ago from Stephanie, and it's grown organically really, really well. And I know we could just do even more, with contests and just more recognition and whatnot.
Yeah, amazing. Well, that's the thing with social. It honestly, there's always more that you can be doing. It's so funny. There's always more. You can always write one more post, do one more tweet. It goes on and on.
Yeah.
And as someone who's been in social for quite some time, I'd love to know what is your favorite thing about working in social? Because I know a lot of the times we talk about like the not so fun sides of social, but I'd like to bring some positivity in.
I think it's the fact that it is different every single day. And I think I know for me personally, I've always been kind of a news nut. And so I feel like in social media, you have to be very much on top of the latest news and the latest trends, and be somewhat of a media outlet yourself for the brand. So that to me has always been enticing, is that we are kind of the forefront of the latest announcements and everything. So that's what I've always loved so much about it.
Yeah, I love that too. We really are like the boots on the ground, like front line. We have to keep the pulse on everything that's going on in our industry, in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes it can also be like it's very exciting and it's very fast paced, but it can be a lot of pressure sometimes because you're like, wow, I'm kind of like the voice of our company right now. And I'm deciding what's going to go out, and it also can be a little scary when you think about it too much. So I try not to think about it that way. But it is like, it's very fun that no day is the same and it's always changing. And there's always something exciting happening or coming up. So it is very fun and rewarding.
Yes. Yeah. I think when I was at Sprint and we were about to merge with T-Mobile, that was in April 2020. And in March 2020 is when everything really shut down. So part of those conversations where we had to put out information that was regarding our stores closing and whatnot, like having to get that out within minutes and write a post and everything, to then, being part of basically having, merging accounts together and the announcements of the merger and everything. I feel like if I could get through something like that and writing posts quickly and keeping on top of stuff, I could, do many other things. So that was definitely a crash course in, crisis communications from the social media.
Yeah. Because that is something that is so challenging also. Like when I think about social, it takes a long time to like craft a perfect message or perfect post. Like it really takes a long time when you're creating content. And then when something is time sensitive, it's almost like, like the pressure is on because like you have to get it out, but you want to make sure that it is like the messaging is correct and the tone's correct. So that can be like a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I think when it comes to that side of it, I think having a really close relationship with your PR people is huge.
Mhm.
Because they are, I know for me in my experience, they're always the people to go to, especially when it comes to the writing certain things and making sure we're using certain language or not using certain language.
Mhm.
But I also think like discovering the voice of the brand. Now, coming in, we already have a voice to the brand, which is great. But I think
Mhm.
it still takes time to make sure you understand it and you're writing in that voice. And I think that
Mhm.
that always takes a little bit of time too. I'm still kind of learning, and you want to make sure it's a brand voice and not your own.
Mhm.
But it is fun to kind of throw in some sort of spunky content once in a while and
Mhm.
have fun with it. So
Yeah, it's that delicate balance of like sticking to like the voice of your brand, but also, you don't want to sound like a robot and you do want to be like, you want to humanize it a little bit. So
oh
it is
yeah,
like, it's a delicate balance of,
it is.
yeah.
It is.
Well, I know I mentioned earlier that you also like manage the community at Corel. So I would love if you had any tips on building or maintaining a community.
I think when it comes to that is being engaged with them as much as possible. So, we have some great, uh, artists, designers on the Corel Draw and painter side who are always engaging with us. So whether it's just liking their post, every time they come in, to always, making sure we're replying and stuff, but
Mhm.
showing that we're taking that extra initiative and because we're very invested in what they're doing and using our product. And
Yeah.
um, we want them to know we appreciate them, especially those who showcase their art that they made with any, with draw or painter or anything like that. And then, in different brands like we have with Parallels is we have a really solid group of influencers that share a lot about us already, our VIPP group, and engaging with them, making sure to engage with them a lot on LinkedIn, and following up on posts they're making that aren't even Corel related, that are just maybe even just career related, and that we're proud, showing we're proud of them because they are so integral in what we do.
Mhm. I love that. I love that little second tip you shared there about not only engaging in the content where they're tagging your brand, but just their overall content. Cause like that is community right there.
Yep.
Community is like taking the brand almost out of the conversation in a way and making those connections, is building those relationships. So wow, I love that. That's a great tip for anyone listening in. Like I'm definitely going to steal that one too. I love
Yeah,
that.
no, that, and even I've been, past places have even from the brand congratulated people on marriage or babies,
Mm,
stuff like that. Cause it's, especially when you're interacting with them every day, you're part of their life. They're kind of part of your life.
yeah.
And yeah, so even that, just whatever they're posting, they're people and we're people too. So
Mhm. Exactly. And that's what makes you feel like that connection to the brand, like when you're using them and engaging with them every day, you feel like you're almost a part of that brand. Like when I think about my favorite like B2C brands,
yeah.
it's the brands that I feel like most connected to, where I feel like I'm a part of their community. And when they engage back with me, like, you feel special. So wow, I love that. That's such a
Yeah.
good tip.
Yeah. No, it's
Well,
I see brands myself, like in my own personal social media, that do that, or even, like a post and stuff. And it could be not about, I like makeup a lot. So maybe it's
me
not
too.
even about makeup, it's just about life, and just even make it that, like, that makes me feel good. So
It
I know I want
does.
to do that back.
Yeah, it really makes you feel special, even though
Yeah.
it's something so simple, but
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
There's a
Well,
person behind that, like, too.
yeah, exactly. Well, we're nearing the end of the show here, and I have one final question for you. And this is something that I ask all of my guests, and it's so fun to hear everyone's answer. And it is, what is one thing you wish your colleagues in other departments knew about social media?
I think it's always been for me to include this in the conversation from the very beginning. And it's not so much for us to be directly making the decision, but it's so we, for me, I know that in order to write certain posts, I need to understand the product or the announcement from the very beginning, you know, because it helps me to kind of craft something in my head. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just for us to be part of the conversation from the get-go. I think that's in every place I've ever been, you know, a lot of times it's still, I've had to fight to even be part of the conversation. Not so much at Corral. I think they've accepted social media and what we've been doing very, very well. But, you know, I think you always have to remind people. I feel like back in my PR days, it was always, you know, the same thing is you have to remind people we're part of the conversation. We need to be at the table for it, you know? So
And especially
because everyone knows like social media needs to be part of whatever we're doing, whether it's a marketing push or whatever. And but you know, to include us in the very beginning is going to be just easier for them, and it's going to make a much better impact on the line.
Definitely. I totally agree. And especially now more than ever, when we consult social media before almost anything else that we do. If you're looking for a job, you're looking for a new product to buy, you always look to social. Probably that's the first place you're looking. So I think it's totally important for us to be a part of the conversation from the very beginning. And as we know, like as social media managers, we have to be an expert on what we're talking about because we're directly talking to like customers, prospects, the community. So we have to be educated. So I think that is so important.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think just always being involved is huge.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining me on Behind the Post. I loved picking your brain a little bit and getting to know a little bit more about Corel and the brains behind your social strategy. So thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. I had a great time. Love you guys.